To truly understand Guernica, you need to understand the moment in history that produced it, because this is not a painting born in a studio from imagination. It is a scream encoded in paint. April 26th, 1937. The Spanish Civil War is raging. The legitimately elected Republican government of Spain is fighting for survival against General Francisco Franco's nationalist forces. Hitler and Mussolini, both eager to test their new military technologies and support a fellow fascist, provide Franco with air power. On that April Monday, a market day when the town would be full of civilians, the German Luftwaffe's Condor Legion and Italian fascist Aviazione Legionaria carpet-bombed the Basque town of Guernica in northern Spain. It was one of the first deliberate mass bombings of a civilian population in history. The attack lasted roughly 3 hours, in waves. Incendiary bombs set the wooden buildings ablaze. When people fled into the streets, they were strafed by fighter planes. The town burned for 3 days. Casualty estimates vary, from around 150 to over 1,600 dead. But the symbolic destruction was total. Guernica was the ancient spiritual homeland of the Basque people, the site of the sacred oak tree under which Basque freedoms had been proclaimed for centuries. Pablo Picasso, living in Paris, had already been commissioned by the Spanish Republican government to create a large mural for the Spanish pavilion at the 1937 Paris International Exposition. He had been somewhat stuck on a subject. Then the news from Guernica hit. He read reports and saw photographs in the press. Within days, by May 1st, he began sketching furiously. He produced over 45 preparatory studies, and the final painting was completed by early June 1937, in roughly 5 weeks of intense work. The result is a canvas measuring 349.3 by 776.6 centimetres, approximately 3.5 metres tall and nearly 8 metres wide. It is painted entirely in black, white, and grey, the palette of newspaper photographs and ash, of the monochrome images of carnage that arrived from Spain. This choice was deliberate and devastating. Colour would have made it beautiful. The absence of colour makes it documentary, timeless, and cold. The painting was exhibited in Paris, then travelled Europe to raise awareness and funds for the Spanish Republic. After Franco's victory, Picasso refused to allow the painting to return to Spain until democracy was restored. It lived at MoMA in New York for decades, acting as a kind of political exile in paint. Finally, in 1981, after Franco's death and Spain's transition to democracy, Guernica was transferred to Madrid, where it now lives permanently at the Museo Reina Sofia, displayed in its own room behind protective glass. The visual language. Before we walk through the painting section by section, it helps to understand why Picasso chose this fragmented, Cubist style rather than realistic representation. Cubism allows Picasso to show multiple perspectives simultaneously. A face can be seen from the front and in profile at the same time. A body can be broken into its components and reassembled in ways that communicate emotional truth rather than visual accuracy. In Guernica, this isn't an artistic exercise. It is the perfect language for chaos, trauma, and disintegration. The fragmentation of forms mirrors the fragmentation of bodies and of a world torn apart. The distortion is the message. The painting also operates on a theatrical logic. It reads somewhat like a stage, with different zones of action from left to right, all happening simultaneously, as if we are watching the entire event frozen in a single moment of collective horror. Left to right, the bull. In the very upper left corner stands a bull, calm and imposing. This is one of the most debated and symbolically rich figures in the entire painting. The bull is intact, unlike nearly everything else. It stands on all 4 legs, head turned slightly outward toward the viewer, its tail raised almost like a flame or a twisted spear. Directly below and in front of the bull is a woman, one of the most heartbreaking figures in the composition, clutching a dead baby to her chest. Her head is thrown back, her mouth open in a shrieking, angular wail. Her neck is stretched to an unnatural length, amplifying the cry. The baby's head lolls limply backward. Its eyes are dots, vacant, gone. This mother and dead child group is among the most emotionally direct images in all of Western art. It deliberately echoes the iconography of the Pietà, the Virgin Mary holding the dead Christ, transposing the sacred image of mourning into the secular horror of modern warfare. The bull looms over her, but does not help, does not react, does not harm. This is crucial. Picasso was famously evasive about what the bull means. He said at various points that the bull represents brutality and darkness, but also that he didn't intend fixed symbols. Interpreters have read the bull as the Spanish state, fascism, the brute force of history, or, conversely, the indestructible spirit of the Spanish people and Picasso himself. Bulls are deeply embedded in Spanish culture. The ambiguity seems intentional. The bull is the one figure in the painting with dignity and composure, which makes it morally troubling. Notice the bull's tail. It twists upward in a shape that mirrors flame and chaos, connecting visually to the fire that will appear on the right side of the painting. The wounded horse and the lamp. The absolute centre of the composition is dominated by a screaming horse, its head thrown back in agony, mouth wide open, tongue shaped like a dagger or a spike. A detail Picasso emphasises to make the scream almost tactile. The horse's body is covered in what appears to be newsprint texture, a direct visual reference to the press photographs and newspaper reports that brought Guernica's story to Picasso. The horse has been stabbed or bombed. A wound is visible in its side, and a spear-like fragment pierces its body from above. The horse is falling, its front legs buckling, its posture collapsing, and yet it still screams. It does not go quietly. In Spanish culture, the bull and the horse are the two central figures of the corrida, the bullfight. Their presence here transforms the entire painting into a kind of terrible, inverted bullfight, except the arena is a town and the matador is modern air power. Some interpreters see the horse as the Spanish Republic, betrayed, wounded, dying, but still crying out. Just above the horse's head, a disembodied arm reaches down from above, holding an old-fashioned oil lamp, round, with a flame that glows. This arm and lamp descend from the upper centre area of the composition. The lamp is widely interpreted as a symbol of truth, journalism, witness, the effort to illuminate atrocity. It is positioned almost directly over the chaos, like a halo that cannot sanctify anything, only reveal. It is also an old lamp in a world of electricity, suggesting the ancient human need to see and bear witness predates modern technology. Notice how the lamp's light seems to struggle against and interact with the harsh electric light bulb that hangs from the ceiling at the very top centre of the painting. That electric bulb, bare, industrial, shaped somewhat like an eye, blazes with jagged rays that look more like blades than light. It has been interpreted as the eye of God, indifferent, witnessing without intervening. The bomb itself, the glaring artificial light of modernity and fascist surveillance, or the sun turned cold and mechanical. It is placed where a chandelier in a domestic room might be, reminding us that this bombing happened to people in their homes. The burning building and the falling figure. Moving toward the upper right, we see flames erupting from a building. The building's geometric, fractured shape suggests walls collapsing inward. The flames are rendered not in colour, but through jagged, sharp-edged shapes that feel violent rather than warm. From the upper right, through what seems to be a window or broken opening, a figure leans out, arms stretched downward in despair or in an attempt to see. This figure holds the oil lamp, the arm extending from the upper centre. It is likely a woman leaning from a window, the one sane vantage point, someone watching from above who cannot stop any of it. Falling down from the upper right, there is a figure in flames, a body tumbling from a building, arms thrown wide, head back. This figure screams as it falls. The detail of the hands is important. One can see lines on the palm, a kind of lifeline rendered precisely even as everything else disintegrates around it. This reminds the viewer that these are people, individual human beings with individual bodies, not abstractions. The dismembered soldier, stretching across the bottom centre of the composition, is one of the most formally striking elements. A fallen, dismembered soldier or figure. This figure lies horizontally, filling the base of the painting. The body is broken. An arm is severed, lying separately. The severed arm clutches a broken sword and a flower. This detail is extraordinarily significant. The sword is shattered, military power is defeated, useless. But the flower growing from the rubble is a tiny, almost invisible declaration of life, hope, or civilian fragility. Many viewers miss the flower entirely on first viewing. Finding it feels like discovering a secret that Picasso hid for those who look closely enough. The soldier's head lies on the ground. His eyes are open, or rather, they are rendered as geometric marks that suggest open eyes staring upward at nothing. Near his head are fragmented shapes, broken tiles, rubble, the detritus of a destroyed town, the screaming figures. The right side of the painting is populated by two more screaming figures. One is a figure whose arms are thrown upward, possibly a woman, possibly simply a human form, caught in the act of falling or running, mouth open, face distorted. The hands are rendered with unusual detail and expressiveness. The fingers are spread wide in a gesture of helpless terror. Behind and to the right of this figure is another screaming face, tilted, with the same dagger tongue motif, mouth wide. This face seems to emerge from or press against a doorway or wall. The repetition of open screaming mouths across the entire composition, the mother, the horse, the falling figure, these figures on the right, creates a terrible visual rhythm of screaming that the viewer's eye cannot escape. No matter where you look, something is crying out. Eyes, tears, and geometry. The ground plane of the painting is littered with fragments, eyeballs without faces, tears rendered as small pointed shapes, shards of tile. Several detached eyes appear throughout the composition, on the floor, embedded in the lamp, in the electric bulb. This obsessive repetition of eyes speaks to the act of witnessing. The painting insists that you see, that you cannot look away. The disconnected eyes also speak to the horror of bodies made into parts, the aftermath of bombing. The tears Picasso depicts are not soft and rounded. They are sharp, pointed, geometric. They look like thorns or blades. Even grief in this painting has edges that cut. Why no colour? It is worth dwelling on this at length, because the colourlessness of Guernica is not merely a stylistic choice, it is part of the argument. The 1930s newspaper photographs of the bombing were black and white. Picasso saw Guernica as the world saw it, in the cold grey tones of journalism. By painting in this palette, he links the painting permanently to documentary evidence. It refuses to aestheticize the suffering through beauty. Colour would have made it a painting about Spain. The grey makes it a painting about everywhere and everywhen. The grey scale also flattens hierarchy. There is no warm centre, no cool periphery, no visual comfort zone. Everything is equally exposed, equally stark. Compositional structure, the hidden triangle, and the chaos. Art historians note that despite the apparent chaos, Guernica has a strong underlying geometric structure. The central screaming horse and the light above form the apex of a large triangle that organises the central mass of the composition, giving it a kind of involuntary stability, the stability of catastrophe, of something that has fully collapsed into its final form. This mirrors the structure of Renaissance altarpieces, where a central triangular arrangement traditionally housed the holy figures. Picasso inverts this. The altar of modernity holds a dying horse and a swinging electric bulb. The painting also has a strong horizontal band of action in the lower third, the fallen bodies and rubble, and a vertical zone of flame and falling in the upper right, creating diagonal movement that pulls the eye downward towards the debris. The preparatory studies, what they reveal. Picasso's 45 sketches and studies for Guernica are revealing. Early studies show a clenched fist. Picasso moved away from overt political symbolism towards something more universal and emotionally raw. He experimented with the positions of the bull and horse repeatedly, trying different orientations. An early study shows the horse trampling a figure. This was softened. He added and removed a weeping figure several times before fixing it in the final composition on the left. He also painted the canvas in several stages that were photographed by his partner, Dora Maar, who documented the work's evolution. These photographs are invaluable. They show the painting evolving from a more conventional arrangement towards the increasingly fractured, overlapping composition we know. The painting's political life. After 1937, Guernica did not just hang on a wall, it travelled and argued and resisted. In 1974, a protester sprayed "Kill Lies All" on the painting while it was at MoMA. It was restored without permanent damage. When the United States was preparing to go to war in Iraq in 2003, Colin Powell gave a press conference at the United Nations in front of a tapestry reproduction of Guernica. And the UN had that tapestry covered with a blue curtain for the occasion. Officials claimed it was merely for the technical needs of the camera backdrop, but the symbolism was impossible to ignore. The most famous anti-war image in Western art was literally covered, so a case for war could be made in front of it. The image of that covered tapestry became itself a political statement. A full-size tapestry copy of Guernica also hangs permanently outside the Security Council chamber at the United Nations in New York, donated by Nelson Rockefeller, a constant, silent reminder placed at the exact spot where decisions about war and peace are made. What the painting means, and why it endures Guernica endures not because it is beautiful. It deliberately refuses beauty, but because it is true in the way that documents are true, and painful in the way that witnessing is painful. It does not let the viewer be comfortable. The screaming mouths face outward. The eyes, those scattered, detached eyes throughout the composition, seem to look back at you, demanding that you not to look away. Picasso once said, "Painting is not made to decorate apartments. It is an offensive and defensive instrument of war against the enemy." Guernica is the fullest realization of that belief. It is a painting that took sides, loudly, and has never stopped. Every element in it, the horse, the bull, the lamp, the bulb, the flower in the rubble, the dagger tongues, the pointed tears, the scattered eyes, is part of a single, sustained argument. That this happened, that it was a crime, that the bodies were real, that the screaming has not stopped, and that we are required to hear it.